Welcome to Silica. When I saw the video published on the Steam, I'm so interested in this FPS plus RTS mode game. However, the most unbelievable thing is such a polished and well-conceptual game is created by one developer, Martin Dram Melichárek. Today, I have the greatest honor to have this chat with him to talk about himself, his game career, and the game.
Or you can hunt them down as the insect-like aliens native to Baltarus.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. It's very honor to have a chat with you. How are you doing recently? You are quite busy.
Good. What about yourself? How are you doing?
I think very busy. Talk about yourself. Actually, I noticed that you were creating the games since you were 12 years old. Wow, I mean 12. Probably most of us still don't know what to do. How would you feel that is your interest?
Well, so it goes back to like the release of Unreal 1 in 1999 or 8, I believe, one of those two. And it came with an editor, Unreal editor, like the original Unreal editor. And I started messing around with that. Started like playing around with making levels and also playing around with like changing weapons and all this kind of stuff. And that's kind of where like my kind of journey into game development started, because I really enjoyed playing games, and I kind of just I was always very creative. I used to make things out of like out of wood, out of metal, and all this kind of stuff, out of plastic. So it was kind of an automatic thing which led me down this road, to kind of like how would I say? I've always been creative, and I wanted to kind of like realize these kind of big ideas, which just you can't do with just like small materials, but you can do it in a game. I've always wanted to kind of like give the have this experience, and enable other people to have that same experience. So that's kind of like where game development really attracted me.
Oh, I see. So actually you grow up in the Australia. So
Yes.
after actually you study in the Sydney, you join the Bohemia directly. What makes you have this big decision to join game industry? What was your initial job there?
Okay, so very good question. So like it's a bit of a continuation on the previous question. When I was modding, then of course, Morrowind came out, for example. I love doing some mods for that. Doom 3, I worked on the dark mod, for example, which is I don't know if you've played the original Thief 1 and Thief 2 from like 1998 and then 2000 or whatever, but I really liked that sneaking game. And there was a mod being made on Doom 3, so I joined that. And that kind of was a big part of my pre-professional career, so to speak, because I was doing a lot of level design there, a lot of scripting, a lot of modeling, texturing, sound, and all this kind of stuff there. So that was one thing which kind of like really allowed me to create a portfolio. And I was in the University of Western Sydney, like studying a bachelor, like doing a bachelor of electronic arts. There's no point doing anything higher than that. So I did a bachelor of electronic arts there, and during that whole time, I was working on the dark mod and other stuff. And so when I when I finished studying, I wanted to like return here to the Czech Republic, because I was born here, but I grew up in Australia. But I always wanted to kind of go back because I love winter.
Okay.
And of course, with climate change, there is no winter, but it doesn't matter. But so I did want to like return here, and so I applied to Bohemia Interactive, and they told me to make like an example mission in Arma, right, or in like Arma 1. So I did do like this example mission. I did like dubbing and stuff, and I remember recording the dubbing for the mission I made, because I made the mission, the scripts, and everything. And the dubbing, I needed a place to do the dubbing, and like at my computer, it sounded terrible. And no other place, I had nowhere. So I actually went into the bush, into the forest, and started recording the dubbing there. And I sent that, and they really loved it, and they hired me, and that was in 2009. That's when I moved to. I basically literally finished university, and I graduated, and like 2 months later, I moved straight into Bohemia Interactive, and started on Arma 2 Operation Arrowhead. That was the first project I worked on.
Wow, that's the probably lots of young men can learn from this. Incredible experience from you. Let's talk about the game. Silica, you are the solo creator of the game. Actually, in this industry, I think that's an unbelievable achievement. What was the original motivation from creating the Silica?
So, thank you very much, first of all. But one thing I would say is today, everyone looks at like the kind of like solo creation as a kind of it's like holy crap, how good do you have to be able to make something solo? But the reality is today it's a very different thing to making something solo in, for example, 2009 or even earlier, right? The reason is that today the tools allow you to make a game quite easily, right? The engine has the tools I worked with when I was working on the dark mod were very, very basic, so there was a person had to be very technically strong. So today when someone says they're solo, it's much less of a meaning than someone being solo in the past. Now, why I'm saying it is it kind of like leads into this other thing, which is, sure, I'm solo, but I did most of the project solo, but I did actually get people along the way to help me for a time. The locations, for example, a lot of them, most of them are not done by me, right? It started off as a solo creation. Then I had some people join for like about a year or two, and then they moved on to other projects. And then it became me solo again, and now I've finally got people again. But it was never the intention. I just want to make that clear. I never just wanted to like do it solo, but it was just like when I started working on it full time, COVID happened, so and it was very difficult to find anyone. But the concept of Silica itself goes back to 2008. That's when I actually started the concept in the Doom 3 engine as a mod. I wanted to do it like in there because I loved Dune 2, the original Dune 2, which is the first RTS ever. I really loved it, and I loved the design of the units and all this kind of stuff, and I wanted to play it first person, but of course, technology back then was just no. So I started doing it in the Doom 3 engine. But very quickly, I didn't have the technical skills for it. I was very young, so I was naive, and also the technology just wasn't there yet. So I abandoned the project, even though I had achieved I made a small map, but I didn't have any proper gameplay or anything like that. I had no idea how to write AI. So I was like, yes. So I dumped the project. But I then revisited it in 2018. That's when I kind of restarted doing it. And when I started doing it then I already had because I did take on Mars, and that was very I wrote about 90% of it, right? And so I had a lot of experience with making units, systems, and all this kind of stuff, all physics based, of course. And I promised myself when doing Take on Mars, I said, I will never do another project which has units and everything driven by physics. And of course, here I am again, right? But to be fair, the reason I did do everything with physics in Silica is because that's what allows the crabs to walk on walls and jump onto vehicles, and the vehicles bouncing against each other, and all. Just the physics allows for really good interaction, and that's why I kind of went with that direction. But yeah, so I started in 2018 working on it in my free time, because I was working on Armor Forger at the time, actually. And so I was just doing it in the evenings, and I expected to be working on about 5 years. And then in 2020, I, by chance, was talking to the CEO of Bohemia Interactive, because I'd known him for quite a while. And he said, yeah, I can kind of imagine you working on smaller projects again. I said, yeah, I actually have this one project which I'm working on. And so when he saw it, he's like, well, why don't you do this full time? I was like, because I cannot afford it. And so we kind of came to an agreement, and that's how Silica was born. like as being a full-time project released under like Bohemia Interactive and like through Bohemia Incubator. And so then I went full-time on it, and that was October 2020. That's when I started like full-time on it, in the middle of COVID, or with the first wave of COVID. So yeah, that was and it was very difficult to find people, but I had intended to find 4 people. I wanted a team of about 4 or 5.
How is the size of your team now?
So right now it's me doing, well, almost everything. Then there's one person that joined just very recently. He's doing the new input system, right? Key bindings and controls, right? Then there's 2 more people which I have, which are doing like the soul structures. You know, there's the 2 human factions, the Soul and Centauri. Well, then right now the buildings that are in the game, those are for Centauri, right? But right now both factions use them because I just wanted, you know, to be able to play. That's why I just made the 2 factions. But the soul structures are still coming. That's what the guys are working on, and the rest, it has to be done by me for now. But I'm still looking for people. I will be expanding the team a little bit more.
Incredible. Is there any aspect of the Silica which you are most proud of in this game?
Very good question. One particular, I'd probably say, now it's going to sound a little bit silly, but the experience, yeah, like the kind of the atmosphere that you get while playing the game, right? The explosions and all this kind of stuff, like the feeling you get in the game. That's, I'd say, what I would be that's what I kind of like enjoy the most out of it. That's what I'm most proud of, because of course, you know, I could say like the multiplayer aspect, or the units being able to walk on walls and whatever, right? Because that in itself were technical problems which were difficult to solve, but those are not what really makes me happy. Do you know what I mean? Those were just like hurdles in the way. What really makes me happy is the kind of like when you play it and there's like the bullets flying everywhere, the explosions, or, you know, even just the sun rising and you get that feeling like you're on a different planet, and the way everything appears. This is what gives me the most joy, you know, like feeling like you're there. That's the thing. That's what I've always wanted. That's why I went into game development, to kind of be able to make these experiences for people. Because I mean, this goes back to like the psychological question of why do we enjoy games, right? Or why do we play games? And I mean, there's 2 reasons, in my opinion. Of course, it's just my personal opinion. Either it's something that you cannot experience, so for example, in outer space or whatever, because it's far away or very difficult to, like, just impossible to get to, for example. Or it's something you don't want to experience. For example, wars. Yeah, no one wants to be in a war, you know? And those that do don't know what war is, you know. So this is the way I view it, you know. So of course, it's really fun to shoot at someone in a video game. In real life, that's not going to be as fun, you know. Because there's another person on the other end that you're shooting or getting shot at. It's not fun to get shot at, right? So that's the way I view games. It gives you experiences which you could not otherwise have.
That's the reason you introduced the FPS in the RTS.
Yes, exactly. Because like when you look at it from just from a gameplay perspective, I could have kept it RTS, but this goes back to another thing. One of the, like, to the multiplayer aspect. One thing which was absolutely crucial for me, with regards to multiplayer, was so I would be able to actually play with high pings, right? With high ping counts. So, for example, you can play Silica with a person on the other side of the world. He's got a ping of 300, and you'll still have a good time. And that was really important for me, because my brother still lives in Australia, and I like to play with him. And it's very difficult to play anything. I like Counter-Strike, for example, but it's just unplayable at 300 ping. You know, so that was really important for me with this game. And yeah, it's really fun to have like him controlling as commander, for example, and I'm on the ground, you know, running around with a gun and whatnot. You know, and that's what I really wanted, like, to be able to. You know, you have the whole epic view from above, you know, building units and sending them in whatever, this big war. But then you jump into one of the units and you feel very small. You know, you're very small in the world. That was really important for me also, to have an authentic scale. Yeah. So, you know, you have a person, like, let's say this big, then the harvester is this big, and the structure which built the harvester makes the harvester look this small and is this tall, you know, compared to it. So the whole idea is you're absolutely tiny in this large world. And that was really important for me as well, because so you feel small, so you feel insignificant, so you kind of like realize that the world doesn't care about you, you know, in the sense like, you know, you're gonna get killed, and that's just how it is. Because then it makes you kind of like think more carefully about what you do, think more tactically, you know, because you know if there's a rocket launcher coming, you are going to die if you don't hide, you know. And I wanted, because then it gives you the true experience, right? That's the important thing. It triggers the right things in your brain, where it's like, okay, I'm a person with a machine gun, and there is a large vehicle with a rocket which is taller than me coming towards me. I need to hide. Because it triggers that kind of like, oh crap, I need to hide. You know, it triggers the various emotions which you would go through in a real situation. Obviously not to that extent, right? You don't feel fear in a video game, but you do feel the kind of exhilaration. You know, you feel that exhilaration, like, oh crap, as you're getting shot at and bullets are flying everywhere, you know, and that's kind of the thing you want to kind of experience in the game. Because to experience it in real life is, you could experience it in paintball, for example. You know, paintball's a lot of fun, or airsoft. But yeah, so that's primarily why I went into like, or what I wanted with Silica, to be able to kind of like, and that's what I'm most proud of, the kind of the experience you get from it. You know, the particle effects, you get the siege tank, you know, when it fires, like, and it's got that kind of bass in it. And then when it explodes, you kind of get that really bassy sound, you know, so you feel it's a really powerful tank. And that's the stuff which I really kind of wanted to portray in, and that's what I'm most proud of.
Yes, that's my actually my personal experience, that when I first time to play the Silica, I saw, oh, wow, this is a real war. I mean, in the middle of the real war. It's like everything is flying, then the bullet, the laser. That's that's a shock for me to experience a real war in the video game, actually. And also, actually, I personally go through all the reviews on the Steam and Discord. Actually, some comments have mentioned that this game is quite similar to StarCraft and Warcraft. What are your thoughts on this?
Very good, like question, or question, in fact. So like my main inspirations for the game were Dune 2, StarCraft, and Natural Selection 2, right? I mentioned Natural Selection 2, that's a game from 2012. It's still like playable today, and it looks nice. I love it. I still love it, but it's all indoors, right? And that is also an RTS FPS game, right? Where there's one commander and the rest of the players are FPS players. And it's also humans versus aliens. Of course, like the RTS FPS genre, like the mix of them, it goes back to like Battlezone and some other games, which like in the past. But yeah, like for this game specifically, my primary inspiration, like, you know, like I said, the concept which I wanted to do was before Natural Selection 2. Yeah. So, and I hadn't played Natural Selection 1, which I think was like from what, 2010 or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember. But when I kind of came up with this concept, it was irrelevant of Natural Selection 2. So, and the primary influence for me was Dune 2. I just absolutely love that. I have it on my phone. It's a DOS game from like 96 or something like that. And I have it on my phone. And I'm going to prove it to you. Here we go. Look, there we go. Come on, go, start up. Cool. I'll just load a random game. That one. There you go. Dune 2.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I loved that game. I really loved it. But and I love the unit designs. You know, it kind of like, it really triggered that creative thing like this. You saw these tiny little people and these massive vehicles and structures and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, and then of course, when Dune 2016 came out, the 2021, sorry, the film, you know, I loved that, of course, you know. But yeah, the primary inspirations were Dune 2 and StarCraft. Those two are like StarCraft 1. Those were the primary inspirations for this game. And, you know, and then the kind of like being able to experience it, like the original concept was meant to be that you do play it as an RTS, but not not like a classical RTS. The whole idea was you're meant to kind of like be those as the commander. You're meant to be in an actual structure. And if you want, I can send you some of the screenshots from the original concept I had in 2008 afterwards. But in fact, I don't know if there's like some sharing here. Is there? Can I share? Might as well.
I think you can share.
Or I'll try and put some images into the chat because yeah, it's how would I say, it's Game Beer, there it is. Yes, okay, cool. Screenshots almost done. I promise I'll be quick. Yeah, it's just an old concept which I absolutely loved, you know. It's history. Yes, here we go. Okay, I'll try and put it here if it's possible. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. It works. Fantastic. So I'll just pop those there. These are like from the original concept back in 2008. And you can see that first image which I posted. That one is, you can see the building there. That was the original command center. Yeah, there was meant to be a person inside that. And he would have monitors in front of him. That was the idea, that he had monitors and he would actually like look at the monitor and like use it to kind of control units. Yeah. And so when someone came, they would actually be able to go and kill him inside that structure. So I kind of deviated from that original concept a little bit, but that's the, like, these are the original screenshots from 2008 in the Doom 3 engine. And by the way, those textures, like the textures on some of the screenshots, like of the cliffs and the sand, those are actually made from real photos from Mars. So
Oh.
from
the real photo from Mars?
From the Opportunity rover, from the Mars Opportunity rover.
Oh, see.
Because that was there in 2004.
Is it taken by NASA?
Yes,
see.
but they're public domain images, so anyone can use them for any purpose. But so I use them for textures because I really wanted that kind of feeling of Mars. I love Mars, you know, so.
Okay. On the Steam, actually, according to the reports, there are almost 60 to 70% of gamers that not using English as a major language. Are there any plans to support multiple languages in this game?
Yes, this is most definitely planned. Basically, the idea is to push for that coming up to release, because right now there's a lot of stuff still changing in the UI. You know, for example, the user interface right now is going to drastically change. There's someone like in the community which kind of made these concepts for like a different visual appearance to the game, and I love it so much that I really want to go back and like use that instead. But yeah, I need to like put it in, and plus there's a lot of text and all this kind of stuff which still needs to be like put into the game, and then all of that needs to be localized, you know, into the various languages. So yes, it most definitely will be, including some Asian languages as well.
That's a good plan because for me, actually, I prefer to use Chinese in the game. Hopefully we can have this.
Yeah, Chinese will be in there as well.
Oh.
The only thing which is when I say localization, I of course mean primarily like text and like, you know, subtitles and all this. As for actual like dubbing, that would be really interesting to do, but currently there's no plan for that.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay.
But it would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yes, would be cool. How about the imbalance? I saw some comments mention that I personally have a similar experience. Humans are much stronger than aliens. A human can destroy anything after 10 minutes game. Is it imbalance in the game or?
Well, the balance. So balancing is a bit of a problem, right? Right now, if you play in single player against the AI and you play as humans, you will easily kill the alien AI because it's not finished. The alien AI, like the alien AI commander, it just builds a very small base. It builds it in the same way as humans would, and that's wrong. They're meant to spread across the map much more. And I just haven't finished that, so that'll present much more of a challenge in the future. But overall AI, like I'm actually going to be overhauling it within about two to 3 months. I'm going to be like redoing the entire AI. And right now, the AI of the aliens is very dumb. Yeah, it kind of like runs past the humans sometimes and whatnot. It's just because it goes for a certain target and whatnot. So these things will change drastically, and the balance, it kind of this is where it's a bit problematic. It will if you play online, almost always aliens win. Right, because the people like at the higher level, when the people get really experienced and know how to play the game, the aliens just have such an advantage that they almost always win. However, if you play it with kind of like normal people, which kind of like aren't looking for like the absolute, you know, meta in the thing, it's like if you played StarCraft with normal people and with the absolute pros. If you play with the pros, it's a completely different game. You know, and here it's the same thing. So when you play with the absolute pros, it's the players, yeah, it's just brutal. Like the gameplay, they fill the map with buildings and units. You know, they push the game way beyond what it was designed for. So there, the aliens always win, almost always win. And I've made some more balancing changes to kind of enable it so that that's not the case. But yeah, like one big balancing change will come once the AIs are more intelligent. So right now it is unbalanced, but it's always kind of been, there's been a shift from balance. Like before, it was aliens would lose most of the time, then they would win most of the time, then they would lose most of the time, then they would win most of the time. Because as I changed things, as I introduced new units, turrets, and all this kind of stuff, because it's still early access, so a lot of the things are still being put into the game. You know, I introduced turrets, and suddenly the aliens would always lose because the humans would build turrets and they just eliminate the aliens. So then I put in alien turrets. Now the alien turrets were really good against the humans, so then they would win. So like doing a 100% kind of like balancing pass will be done like obviously like to kind of like ensure the proper balance between aliens and humans. That will be done in like getting closer to release, right? But otherwise, during that time, of course, I always do a little bit of balancing and so on. So like right now, I'd say it is okay balance, but it really depends. Like if aliens kind of like don't attack early, like relatively early, then the humans do have more powerful weapons, right? But this kind of comes down to it also comes down to like, maybe that's a good thing, right? But one thing which is really missing, and this is one of the crucial points, the game is missing first of all commander abilities. So for example, if you've played Helldivers, Helldivers 2, then you know you can call in like some strikes and this kind of stuff, right? Those are kind of like what I would call like in Silica, those would equate to commander abilities, and I do intend to have that. So the commander should be able to kind of like call in like orbital strike or something like that, right? So that will change a lot of things as well, because the commander will be able to do more things like on the battlefield than just send units. And that will be really crucial for some aliens as well, because they'll be able to, for example, slow down enemy tanks by putting like spikes that come out of the ground or something like that. But most importantly, there's no super weapons right now. And super weapons, that'll make a big difference, because super weapons and certain upgrades, right? So aliens right now, what you see is what you get. But what's meant to happen is aliens are meant to have a cloak structure, which cloaks the buildings and makes them invisible like Predator, right? So that will be an interesting change as well once that's in, because then the aliens can kind of hide their base, and though it'll be easy for the humans to destroy the base, they still have to find where it is, you know. And of course, the super weapons, the aliens are meant to get the largest unit in the game, and it's meant to be the Titan, and that's meant to be, you know how I said this, that like if the harvester is this big, and the building that builds the harvester is this big, then the Titan, relative to that structure, is meant to be about this big. So it's meant to be colossal in size, you know, and it's meant to take like, it's meant to be like you'll only be able to build one, and it would like obviously walk slowly but be super ultra powerful, so it'd be really difficult to take down. And that's kind of like the really late game aliens. So like the way I imagine the aliens playing is they start off early, like having an advantage because they can swarm and be more aggressive and dangerous. But then they kind of dip into like a position where they're outpowered by the human weaponry, right? The rocket launchers and all this kind of stuff. But then they get into the super weapon where they've got this giant unit which can completely destroy a human base and move around, right? So it's kind of the that's kind of like where I see it, you know, like balance is going to be a bit of a problem to ensure, like towards release, making sure that it's perfectly balanced the whole game. I think it'll always be kind of dependent on the situation as well, you know, because there's different maps and the maps heavily influence the balance of the game. You know, StarCraft, it's all based on distance. Yeah, the terrain doesn't play much of a role. But here, the terrain plays a massive role. You know, if there's a lot of cliffs and a lot of things, the aliens can hide behind. The infantry, like the human infantry, can hide in that as well. You know, while if it's very open, then, you know, the air units have a big advantage and so on. So this is one thing which is going to be really interesting to kind of like try and get the different maps balanced, if you get what I mean.
Oh, I see. Tell you a fun story. Actually, I played almost hundreds games in the Silica and never use alien to beat the human AI. Just never. I use a human, never lose. I think never lose. And I feel
that was single player, by the way.
Single play.
Yeah. Because the AI for the aliens is like, especially for the commander alien, it's crap. Yeah, it's going to be completely overhauled.
And I feel that the move speed of the vehicle in the game is quite slow. Is it intention?
It is slower. This is very true. It is the intention to like have the like it's realistic speeds, right? For example, I can't increase the speed of the infantry, otherwise it would be too much. It would look really strange, right? And increasing the speed of the vehicles, you know, a tank kind of should have a certain speed. But I will, of course, still be looking into like increasing the speed to a small degree. But rather than like increasing speeds of the vehicles, because the maps are like there's Rift Basin, which is 3 by 3 kilometers, and then the rest are 6 by 6 kilometers. They're massive, right? And the intention I actually have is to make more smaller maps that are, for example, 1 kilometer across. You know, so those will be much more action oriented, and the vehicle speeds there, that's not going to be a problem. You know what I mean? So for the people that want more action oriented gameplay, the smaller maps are the way to go. Because the reality is the 6 by 6 kilometer maps, the people just get lost in them. You know, it can be a lot of fun when you're playing a really competitive match because you have a lot of space to maneuver and do a lot of things. But you know, for someone who just wants to, like, you know, who has, let's say, 1 or 2 hours to play, you know, and they want to play a couple of matches and much more intense, then yeah, the large maps are not the way to go. So that's why I want to make more small maps where people can easily like just have like, you know, they start the match and almost really quickly get into combat and you know, it stays really intense the whole way, you know, and that's what I want to kind of like direct towards.
But the small map will be benefit for the aliens, right? Isn't?
Not really. It would be beneficial for the aliens to a degree, but one thing that's currently missing in the game is the fast travel for aliens, right? Humans kind of have the hover bike and they also have the teleportation, but the aliens just have to run or fly, right? But what's missing there is there's meant to be a natural node system on the planet, like as part of like the lore, right, of the game. There's meant to be like these underground, like, or these surface like little nodes which the aliens can get into and move quickly to the next node, like this underground kind of creature. Like this underground, like these tunnels, right? These biotic tunnels, which they can utilize to quickly move across the map. And this is really missing in the game, right? And this should, like, and I'll have to make it so the AI can use it as well. So if you send a large group of crabs, for example, to attack the enemy, they'll use these nodes to kind of like quickly move towards the enemy. So that's one thing which is really missing, and it will increase the gameplay speed quite a bit as well for the aliens.
Oh, I see. Okay. Then talk about the future. What are the future milestone or in-game features? Can leak something big things to us?
Yes. So one of the things which I wanted to already have in, it was meant for Q1, and we're now in Q2, is there's meant to be control points. So if have you played Company of Heroes?
No.
Okay. Well, if you know Battlefield, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
that.
and you know how you kind of there's these points which you have to fight over and take, and then you kind of like move towards the enemy.
Yes.
Yeah, like these regions. Well, this is what I want to do here, right? Right now, it's kind of like just base versus base, right? And the enemy, like the two sides, they meet, you know, either at the enemy base or they meet at some resources or just kind of like a bit randomly. Well, what I want to do is actually have like territorial control. So the map will be divided to territories, like these regions, and there'll be like central points to take over that region. And so those will be points you have to go and capture, right? To kind of like claim. And this is what I want to add to the game, because it'll mean that there's going to be much more smaller encounters of like, you know, two people, like two sides fighting over the one point, over like these choke points and whatnot. And that'll be a big change because first of all, it'll be much more, it gives much more for the player to do, right? Because right now, people complain about the speed of the vehicles, mainly because they go from one base to another base. That's all they do, right? Whereas if you have these control points, then it's going to be a lot about pushing those control points, and the distances won't be that problematic because, you know, your target isn't 3 kilometers away, it's 500 meters away. You know, so it's the speed won't be that much of a problem, and that will drastically change the gameplay, in my opinion. You know, so that's one thing, and of course, like respawn mechanics and all this kind of other stuff. But this is one major change which is coming, which is going to, I think, greatly change the way the game is played.
Oh, okay. Then when can we expect the first official version rather than early access?
Oh, first like version 1.0. So originally the plan was to go for November this year, roughly speaking, like Q4. But realistically, I don't think that's going to happen. Just based on because I would rather push the game back, like the release back, to make sure it's a polished product, like a polished game, rather than just release it early and it's not perfect, if you get what I mean. So it's probably going to be sometime next year, most likely.
Okay. That's